I never told my family this story, mostly because I already know exactly what they would say. They'd say I was stupid, that no normal person answers listings like that, and that everything that almost happened to me was something I walked right into. And honestly, they'd be right. This happened back in 2021 when I was desperate to get out of my apartment. My roommate had stopped paying rent, my car needed repairs I couldn't afford, and I was getting closer and closer to being completely stuck. Every day after work, I would scroll listings, just hoping to find something cheap enough to survive for a few months. Most of what I saw was either way too expensive or looked like places you wouldn't even feel safe sleeping in. Then I found one that seemed almost perfect. It was a small furnished studio above a detached garage, private entrance, utilities included, and the rent was way cheaper than anything else I had seen. The owner described herself as an older widow who just wanted a quiet tenant. The photos looked clean, simple and normal. Nothing fancy, but definitely livable. It honestly felt like I had gotten lucky for once. When I went to see it, the house was in a calm neighborhood with long driveways and flowers outside. The woman, Carol, met me halfway down the driveway. She had a soft voice and smiled constantly, almost like she had practiced it. She showed me the room, and it looked exactly like the pictures. Everything seemed fine, so I took the place 2 days later. For the first few days, everything really was normal. I'd go to work, come home, eat, watch something, and go to sleep. Carol mostly stayed out of the way, but sometimes she would appear outside right when I got home, like she somehow knew I had just pulled in. I ignored it and told myself I was overthinking. The first weird thing happened on the 4th night. I woke up around 2 a.m. and heard something under the floor. It wasn't a normal creak or pipes. It sounded like movement. Slow, deliberate movement, like someone shifting their weight in a tight space. I froze and listened, but after a few seconds it stopped. The next morning I convinced myself it was just an old building making noise, but it didn't stop. Over the next few nights I kept hearing things, scraping, tapping, dull thuds all coming from below me. Then one night I heard footsteps outside my door. They stopped right in front of it, and I heard the handle move once. I didn't breathe. After a while, the steps walked away. The next morning was when everything really changed. I went into the bathroom and saw my toothbrush sitting in the holder, still wet. I hadn't used it yet that day. That's when I went downstairs and asked Carol if anyone had been in my room. She smiled like nothing was wrong and said no. Then she said something that didn't make sense. She asked if I had been locking the inside hatch. I had no idea what she was talking about, so I went back upstairs and checked the closet. Behind some boxes, I found a square panel on the floor. There was no lock on it. When I lifted it up, there was a ladder going down into a dark space. I shined my phone light and saw a chair, water bottles, food wrappers. Someone had been living down there, watching me. I dropped the panel and grabbed my keys immediately. As I ran for the door, I heard something behind me, the panel opening again. I didn't look back. I ran down the stairs, got into my car, and locked the doors. That's when I saw Carol standing on the porch. She wasn't smiling anymore. She just stood there staring at me, then slowly raised her hand and pointed back toward the garage, like she wanted me to come back. I drove straight to a gas station and called the police. They found evidence that someone had been staying under that room, but I never went back. And after that, I stopped believing in lucky finds, because nothing like that is ever really free. The police told me there was no sign of forced entry, no broken locks, no open windows, nothing disturbed, which means whoever was inside my house didn't break in. They were already there. This started right after I moved into a small rental house by myself. It wasn't creepy or isolated, just a normal home on a quiet street. That's exactly why I chose it. I wanted something simple and predictable. The first week felt completely normal. I unpacked, got into a routine, and didn't notice anything strange. Then one evening, I came home and saw that one of the kitchen chairs was slightly pulled out. I stared at it for a moment, trying to remember if I left it that way. Eventually, I convinced myself I did. A few days later, I noticed something else. My bathroom setup was slightly off. My toothbrush was on the wrong side of the sink. Again, not a big change, just enough to make me pause. I told myself I must have moved it. Then things started disappearing. Small things at first. Food going missing. A yogurt I didn't remember eating. Bread disappearing faster than it should. I even started wondering if I was sleepwalking. Then one night I woke up and heard movement in the kitchen. A soft, careful sound, like someone opening a cabinet slowly. I didn't move. I just stared at my bedroom door, waiting. The sound stopped. The next morning, everything looked normal again. A few nights later, I heard footsteps. Slow, quiet footsteps walking across the floor outside my room. They stopped right at my door and stayed there for what felt like a full minute before slowly moving away. That's when I started locking my bedroom door. A few days later, I tested something. I left for work, then came back and watched the house from down the street. About 30 minutes later, I saw my front door open slightly, then close. No one came out. I went back inside and heard breathing coming from the hallway closet. When I opened it, there was a woman crouched behind my clothes staring directly at me. She didn't look surprised. She didn't speak. She just raised her finger to her lips. I ran. The police later found food hidden all over the house. She had been living there, moving around when I wasn't home. The officer told me she didn't break in. She was already inside when I moved in. And the worst part is, every time I heard something at night, I was right. When I first moved into the house, I thought the previous tenant had just left in a hurry. That's what the landlord told me, at least. He said the guy moved out unexpectedly and didn't take everything with him, and there were still a few small things left behind. Papers in drawers, random kitchen items, things you'd expect someone to forget if they packed quickly. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. If anything, it made the place feel a little less empty, like someone had lived there recently, which made it easier to settle in. Looking back, that feeling should have bothered me more than it did. The first note showed up 3 days after I moved in. I came home from work and saw it sitting on the kitchen counter, right in the middle like it had been placed there deliberately. It was a small piece of paper, folded once. I remember just standing there staring at it, trying to figure out if I had somehow left it there myself. I opened it, and it said, "Don't use the hallway after 2. That was it. No name, no explanation. I actually laughed a little when I read it. I figured it was something the previous tenant had written to themselves, maybe about a noise or something weird with the house. I crumpled it up and threw it away without thinking much more about it. That night, I woke up at exactly 2:14 a.m. for no reason. I didn't hear anything at first. I just had that feeling like something wasn't right. I laid there staring at the ceiling, trying to fall back asleep, and then I heard it. A sound in the hallway. It wasn't loud or obvious, just a soft movement, like someone stepping carefully, trying not to make noise. I sat up immediately and looked at my bedroom door. It was closed, just like I always left it. The sound stopped almost instantly, like it hadn't been there at all. I stayed awake for a long time after that, listening, but nothing else happened. Eventually, I convinced myself it was just the house settling, old wood shifting, the kind of thing people always say to calm themselves down. The next day, I didn't even think about the note until I got home that evening. There was another one sitting in the same exact spot on the counter. Same paper, same fold. This one said, "I heard you last night." That's when everything started to feel wrong. I picked it up and just stood there reading it over and over again, trying to understand how it got there. All the doors were locked. The windows were closed. Nothing looked disturbed. I checked the trash where I had thrown the first note and it was gone. Not moved, Not buried, gone. That's when I called my landlord. He told me no one had access to the house except me. No spare keys, no scheduled visits, nothing. He sounded annoyed, like I was overthinking it, so I dropped it. Or at least I tried to. That night I stayed up later than usual, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't relax. Around 2 a.m., I turned everything off and just sat there in silence, waiting. Nothing happened at first. No sounds, no movement. I started to feel stupid for letting it get to me, like I was building something up in my head. Then I looked at the time, 2:07, and I remembered exactly what the note said. Not don't use the hallway, don't use it after 2. At 2:12, I heard the same sound again. Slow movement right outside my room. This time I didn't hesitate. I got up, walked to my door, and opened it. The hallway was empty, completely empty, but something felt wrong immediately. The air felt colder, heavier, like the space itself had changed. I turned on the light and looked around. Nothing was out of place. I checked every room, every corner, even the bathroom and closets. There was nothing there. But that feeling didn't go away. It felt like I had interrupted something, like something had just been there seconds before I opened the door. I went back to bed, but I didn't sleep. The next morning there was another note. This time it wasn't on the counter. It was taped directly to my bedroom door at eye level. It said, "You're not supposed to look." That's when I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. I went out that same day and bought a camera, just a small one, and set it up facing the hallway. I told myself I needed proof, something real, something I could point to and say, this is what's happening. That night, I stayed in my room with the door closed, watching the live feed on my phone. Time passed slowly. 1:30, 1:50, 2 o'clock. Nothing. Everything looked completely normal. At 2:11, the camera flickered for a second, then came back. The hallway looked the same, but something felt off. I couldn't explain it. Then I saw it. At the far end of the hallway, where it opens into the living room, there was something there. Not clearly visible, not a full figure, just a shape, a shadow that didn't belong. I stared at it, trying to make sense of what I was seeing, and then it moved. Not like someone walking, more like it shifted forward slightly, like it was leaning closer. The camera glitched again, and when it came back, it was gone. Completely gone. I didn't move. I didn't open the door. I just sat there staring at the screen, trying to process what I had just seen. At 2:17, the camera feed cut out completely. When it came back a few seconds later, there was something new. A piece of paper on the floor right outside my door. I didn't want to open it. Every part of me was telling me to leave it there, to not interact with whatever was happening, but I couldn't help it. I opened the door slowly, picked it up, and unfolded it. It said, "Now you know why he left." I called the police that night. They searched the entire house, every room, the attic, the crawl space, everything. They didn't find anything. No signs of forced entry, no evidence of anyone else being there. I showed them the footage, and they told me it could have been a shadow, a glitch, lighting issues. They had explanations for everything except the notes. I moved out 2 days later. I didn't argue, didn't ask questions, didn't even take everything with me. I just left. About a week later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name on the front. Inside was a single piece of paper, same handwriting as the notes. It said, "You listened. Thank you." And I still think about that sometimes, because I don't know what would have happened if I didn't.